Hello, everybody. Dave Neal here, stand-up comic and host of Bachelor Recap, a guy's review, and it's week 4 of Clayton's season. Let's get into it. And by the way, happy Chinese New Year to all of you guys out there that are celebrating. All right, so as you guys know, I take notes, read them back to you. No edits, no jump cuts, just me, you, a couple notes here, and a couple photos I'll share with you so we know which blonde person we're talking about. Follow me on Instagram at dneals if you don't mind. And also, you can join the Patreon if you want to see behind-the-scenes content of how I make my videos. I call it Work with Dave. I'm going to be going live for several hours today on the Patreon. Go to patreon.com/Dave Neal if you want to be a part of that. Right there, you can find the link in the description below. All right, so let's get into it. By the way, the Dave Neal Show is in its 3rd week now, and we are about to monetize in the next couple days. If you want non-Bachelor content, that's where you need to go. Someday, maybe not today or this year, but someday the Dave Neal Show will be the primary channel that I make content on when The Bachelor is long gone. I'm preparing for those times now, and we're having a ton of fun talking about other pop and entertainment news. You can go check out all those videos now. All right, so let's get into it. Here they are, folks. We have the week 4 Elizabeth versus Shanae continues. I'll be honest, you guys might be sick of this storyline. I could watch these two battle all year long. I really could. There's something fun about it because they represent like different sides of the brain. This is like Clayton being there with like the good on one side and the evil on the other. You've got Shanae, which operates just on ego. And then you've got Elizabeth, who operates with her brain. You know what I mean? Elizabeth is like very eloquent and defining her point and not getting too upset. And Shanae's like, oh, no, you don't. You know what I mean? So Elizabeth says she'd be afraid and hurt if Shanae stays in the house. Well, we'll see how this ends up. Genevieve asked the house to discuss the drama before Clayton arrives to squash it. We're like, oh yeah, this is going to go well. Let's try to discuss the drama without Clayton here. I'm sure we'll all be perfectly fine and won't have a problem at all. Shanae says she feels people don't acknowledge her, so now we have the bully playing the victim. Clayton pulls Shanae and Elizabeth to talk about the cocktail ceremony, so there they are. Shanae claims she has been bullied. Elizabeth asked for her to define when she was bullied. Is Elizabeth a lawyer? Because she would be so great if like, all right, please provide the receipts and the evidence to the court. We'd love to know when you were bullied. And then Elizabeth would just have like a chart being like, actually, this isn't bullying. This is you being an a-hole. So they go back to the shrimp debacle. Shanae is the first to raise her voice, and that's 100% who loses these fights. The first person to raise their voice didn't have a point, so they needed to use their emotions to elicit some sort of, I don't know, gain. You know what I mean? Like, this is how it works. Got to keep it cool. Clayton walks away. He's like, I'm going to let you guys talk this out. They're like, oh, no, you don't. They start, lacing up the gloves. Elizabeth then walks away. Shanae calls her fake. Shanae called Elizabeth fake. And comment if I got this wrong. And then Elizabeth says to the group, I think she just called me fat. And I'm like, oh, boy. This is we're not going to be putting these Pringles back in the can. Is that a saying? Okay. I'm always looking for a new saying here. All right. So it's getting ugly. Then the women, they get resentment because the shrimp drama took center stage and they were robbed of their time. The whole house calls Shanae out. You're not talking about it because you know you're in the wrong. And Shanae's like, I don't want to talk about it. They're like, because you have no point. You're not, And of course, Elizabeth, or I should say Shanae is just not good at executing her points of view and her opinions. She feels ganged up on because of her initial comments about Elizabeth in the ADHD community. She knows she's in the wrong. She's doubling down because it's easier for her to double down than to admit that she was wrong. And that's really sad. I think it's okay to admit when we're wrong. That doesn't mean we're less of a person to be wrong about something. Just say, hey, my limbic system was flared. It was us versus them. My dad was mean to me as a kid. Whatever it is, just say what it was. You know what I mean? Get some therapy. Meanwhile, Clayton is, by the way, I heard that the show doesn't like for them to see the on-set therapist because they can't film that. So they prefer to have them voice their concerns on camera, which is why we're seeing no resolutions towards their sort of general way of being. Meanwhile, Clayton is outside looking like, sad Ben Affleck having a cigarette break. He's like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Shanae is hot, but I cannot let this pony ride its way to the fantasy suite. Jesse Palmer comes out to deliver the news that the cocktail hour is canceled, and this is sure to piss people off. No one likes that because they're like, I didn't get my time to talk to him. The whole thing happens. The rose ceremony. Elizabeth goes home. Shanae stays, and this pisses a lot of people off. Shanae says, I took her down. Clayton believed me. And by the way, we'll have another video coming out after this where Clayton addresses some of this stuff on Twitter, saying he can't wait for the women tell all. He's excited. It seems like he's getting a ton of criticism, but we have to be fair. He wasn't able to see what was going on behind the scenes. For all he knew, Elizabeth was instigating this. You know, you'd like to think that you and I could make a better judgment call, but we have no idea. We have no idea what sort of picking process we would pursue. The next morning, the women are freaking out, seeing Elizabeth go and Shanae stay. Shows how they have little control, and they're like, oh boy, this is not good. Shanae says now she can breathe and be open. And it's like, well, if Elizabeth was the problem, we won't see any more drama with Shanae, right? Jesse Palmer gives bad news. No date today. He says there's no date today here in Los Angeles. And the place goes crazy. Man, I would just like to be the guy delivering the news. I feel like I would love a job where I get to just deliver good news. He's like, first stop on this incredible world tour, a classic city, Dubai. And they're like, hold on a second, we're not going to Dubai. It's Houston. He's like, Houston, what? We're not leaving the country? He's like, we're going to Milan. They're like, no. It's Houston. And he's like, okay, we're going to be going to Mexico City. We're Houston. We're going to Houston, Argentina. Houston, Texas? Okay, it's Houston, Texas. They're like, okay, we'll go to Houston, Texas. All right, that's fine. Just don't call it what it is. No offense to our people in Houston. Oh my gosh, are you kidding me? What do you got to get Houston? You're in LA. It's like, listen, come on. It's Houston. All right. We've all been there. First stop on the incredible adventure. And it's like, all right, super humid, home of oil, and the Bush compound. Speaking of the Bush compound, that's enough about the fantasy suites. Hey, folks, whatever. Manscaped. Let's get into it. Bushwhacking. Clayton gets a knock on the door. It's his buddy Clarence. Clarence shows up. You get to see how stressed Clayton is by how excited he is to see his buddy. You got to remember, it's like he has nobody to trust. None of the producers are really there for him. Everyone's there to just like wring this sponge full of drama. And then finally he sees somebody he loves. He looks like a guy who sees like like on a stranded island and sees like a boat for the first time. He's like, hey, hello, hey, help me. They played college football together. All right, so Rachel gets the first one-on-one date. So we'll go to Rachel right here. They make out on first sight. That was it. She's wasting little time. She shows up, immediately starts making out with him. She's not wasting a second here. We really like what Rachel, and I've said this before, that the one reason I didn't like Rachel is that she sort of looks like someone I used to work with. Like there's no reason for me, talk about being evolved people, that I'm just like, well, I don't like her. Why? Because she has a similar jawline to someone I kind of didn't get along with. We've all done that, right? I'm getting over it. I'm overcoming it. I'm going to therapy. They make out. They strap some GoPros to a horse. Look at these horses. They're just just random GoPros. They're like, where's the other one? Don't ask. They arrive to a random cookout, barbecue ribs, sausages, just a random trio of bros. Listen, I actually prefer this over the Hillary Duff stuff. Just give us some random people, see what they've learned about life. It's kind of fun. What I love about Rachel, she isn't wasting a moment, whispering to Clayton, I'm so happy you took me here. There's Rachel right there, right? The evening portion of the date, they reveal Restless Road is performing, a new band. Listen, I thought the band that was performing was the same group of guys that they were having barbecue with. Wouldn't that be fun if they're just having barbecue with some random friends and then all of a sudden they're playing them music? I don't know. What do I know? Their chemistry is off the charts. They have great chemistry. They got it going on. They don't want time to stop. The sun's going down and they're like, I wish there was another moment. Very Nicholas Sparks. She's got to be an instant favorite for this thing, right? And my only critique with their date is maybe she came off a tinge too needy. Maybe she was like, I'm so glad you chose me. She was kind of like a minion, you know what I mean? Or I'm the chosen one, the claw, you know what I mean? One of those things. Below. Back at the hotel, the girls chat about what to do about Shanae. Meanwhile, Shanae can supposedly hear the conversation next door. Feels fabricated to me, right? It just felt kind of fabricated, like Shanae's, pushing up against the wall. She's wondering like what they're saying. And I personally just don't feel like that's actually how it went down. But hey, maybe it worked on camera. Group date is next. Meet me at the stadium, right? They do the group date, Little Giants. My only beef with this is that the purple team and the blue team looked nearly identical. That, or maybe my TV needs a color adjustment, but it's like, can we have one team be the white team, one team be the blue team? You know what I mean? Purple and blue. It's like, who's passing it to who. And they didn't know either. I mean, interceptions, fumbles, turnovers. It's like, oh boy, they're just tackling people without the balls. And like, the former football player in me is like, well, that's illegal. You know what I mean? But I feel like the officials are like, what are we going to do? Just let them play. Let them fight it out. Group date is next. Get the ambulance ready. No one got injured. Can you imagine that? Nobody got injured. You put pads on and you don't get as injured. The pads can protect you. Ladies arrive in their favorite matching yoga outfits for tailgating, buns, burgers, and brawls. I'm jealous of this date. Cornhole, beers in the parking lot. Then we throw an electric car commercial. Where did that come from? Maybe you don't operate a charcoal grill next to a charging vehicle. I don't know how it works. I don't know how electric cars work. Can you operate a coal next to? It's almost like it's like coal, charcoal. I don't know. There's something there. Clayton's buddies arrived. Jonathan Grenard and Camille Hill. Did I say that right? Houston Texan football players. Really shows us how large Clayton is, that he's the same size of them. Usually the football players are like towering over. Clayton's a giant of a man. No flag football, full tackle. Winners get the after party. Looking forward to Marlena the Olympian running over a villain or two. Was sort of surprised at the production value of this. It was actually like way better than I thought. Normally they put them in some like weird helmets they found at Dick's Sporting Goods, but they have like professional grade uniforms and pads on. I was very surprised. Usually they're in some 1940s leather helmets running around. That stuff they found at a Goodwill. They got some production assistant there trying to find a couple field hockey pads. Jesse Palmer and Hannah Storm are commenting. We love Hannah Storm. Listen, Jesse Palmer's an NFL football commentator. He was great in the moment. I'm sure he was actually way funnier and had way more to say than what they showed, but they probably didn't want to steal the attention too far away. But we finally get to see a little bit more Jesse Palmer. The Bachelor Bowl pre-tape package was probably the coolest produced moment the show has ever had. It was cool for them to show all of the previous seasons where they played football on the show. Jesse Palmer with a line of the night. Someone gets tackled and he goes, Jill's a vegan and she just ate grass. So I was like, all right, not bad. Marlena shows the crowd what an Olympian can do. Very nice. Credit where it's due. Shanae grabs an interception. Shanae has some athletic abilities in there, not just dodging the ladies in the mansion. She's also playing some good football. Marlena tackled before she had the ball. Clear missed pass interference call. Again, what do I care? Leads to vigilante justice. Shanae then pancakes Sierra. Marlena decks Shanae. It's one after another. Purple punishes the purple punishers dominate the shrimp stampede. And what words did I just say? Why did that come out of my mouth? At least they played a real sport and not some bikini mud fight nonsense. The credit to the show. They're like, you know what? No one Yosef doesn't like it when we strip people down and play a little tinsel hockey. Fine. We're going to put them in actual outfits. We're going to make them play the real game. And it's like, okay, fine, sure, whatever. Shanae said, especially. So then Shanae in the moments was saying especially instead of especially. And that pissed me off more than any of the other bullying, that she said especially instead of especially. That's like when you say, I'll have an espresso versus an espresso. I don't know. Some things just piss me off. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure I say words and you guys go, Dave, that's not even how that's pronounced. Absolutely. But I'll make sure I especially don't say that when I'm drinking an espresso. She's still dressed in her football outfit, so we know her night's not over. The evening dates continue. Shanae says she has a plan to stand up for herself and what she believes in, and boy, does she ever do that. Now, it's kind of hard to see here, but this is what I consider one of the hottest maneuvers in Bachelor Nation here. The old jump on the bar in a dress and kiss your man. This is the look, folks. If you ever want to wow a man, I don't know. What do you think? Does it get hotter than that? That's pretty, that's a pretty nice move there. We don't know does she put a coaster under the butt? Like, what do you need to do there, right? Under that. Okay. Meanwhile, so Sierra says that they were shocked when Clayton decided to keep Shanae and says if Clayton had the full story, they believe he wouldn't want her there. Clayton says Shanae seemed to be involved in all the conflict. I wonder how unlucky that is. Can you believe that? How unlucky it is that Shanae just randomly stumbled into all of the conflict as it exists on the show. Shanae arrives in a little black dress. Clayton says, weren't you on the losing team? And it's like, oh boy, here we go. Shanae tells Clayton that she heard what they were plotting. Listen, kind of genius of Shanae to get ahead of the news here. Clayton has Shanae up on the bar top making out. Villain or no villain, hot move, bold to say the least. And I have to say, it's like, so now when the girls do tell Clayton that Shanae's there for the wrong reasons and all this, she says, listen, I told you they were plotting against me. So she's kind of ahead of the news. My guess, I think she should, you know, the producer in me wants her to stay all season because it's good drama, but I know you guys are all sick and tired of hearing from her. And we'll have more content later on in other videos today regarding what's happening behind the scenes. I have a bizarre story because sometimes we go, listen, you don't like the edit someone got. I have a bizarre story about Shanae calling out someone else's plastic surgery, and she equated that to why that person's fake, you know, on the inside. So I'm going to get into that story. It's kind of nasty, and it kind of shows that Shanae may not be learning much from her experience on the show. We'll get into it. Let me know what you guys think, and if you guys want to be supportive, I appreciate everyone who's joining the Patreon, patreon.com/Dave Neal. We'll see you over there, and we'll talk to you very soon. Bye, guys.